Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I wasn't initially going to publish this vlog just because the last one came a few days ago, and tomorrow I'm playing this $200 buy-in tournament at the game, and I kind of wanted to take the week off, get some rest. But going through the footage, I realized that there were some good hands to make a vlog out of, and also I kind of take any opportunity that I can to level up my editing skills. And in this vlog in particular, I had a lot of fun inserting things here and there to make it a entertaining and enjoyable vlog, or so I hope. Let me know what you guys think. Also, I've been experimenting with how I display the action, what usually happens in this corner of the screen here. In this vlog, you'll see I have all the action going pre-flop to river, all kind of on one screen. So let me know what you think of that too. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Yeah, that's about all I have for now. Once again, if you enjoy my content, please leave a thumbs up, and then also please subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know when I release a new video. It helps a ton to grow the channel. Really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. Let's go into the video, and I'll catch you guys later. All right, first interesting hand we get involved with, we look down at 10-8 of clubs on the button. We see a limp from the hijack, a limp from the cutoff. We make it 2,000. The hijack comes along and the cutoff calls as well. We go to the flop, which comes deuce, 7 deuce with 2 hearts. Hijack checks, cutoff checks. This is not really a board that hits my range, and it's definitely not a good blower for my hand. But I only have 10 high and it's been checked to me. So I'm going to take a stab here, and I'm going to bet pretty small. I bet 2,800. If I get called, I got a backdoor flush draw, a backdoor straight draw. It doesn't come to that, however, as the hijack folds and the cutoff folds, we pick up the pot. In this next hand, we look down at king-queen suited from the hijack. There is a limp from the under the gun player. We make it 2,000. The big blind calls the 2,000, and the under the gun player calls. We go to the flop, which comes 10, 6, 8 rainbow. The big blind checks. Under the gun player checks. I decide to check back here and see what develops on the turn. The turn comes the 5 of diamonds, giving us the second nut flush draw. The big blind checks. Under the gun bets 3,500. I look over at their stack and they have about 8,000 behind. With 2 overs and the second nut flush draw, I definitely want to see a river. However, I don't really like calling here and then folding if I miss the river. I want to put the pressure on my opponent. I want to take the initiative. So I put them all in and they snap call. I'm surprised to see that I have my opponent completely dominated, as they show king 7 of clubs for an open-ended straight draw. So all I need to win this hand is a non-diamond 4, 7, or 9. Let's go to the river. It's a 10 of spades. We pick up the pot. On to the next hand. In this next hand, I look down at pocket 3s on the button. It folds around to me. I make it 2,000. The big blind defends. We go to a flop of queen 7, 3. We flop a set. Big blind checks to us. This is a tempting spot to check. However, I want to start extracting value from my set as soon as possible, and I can get value from diamonds, a queen, or maybe some middling pairs. However, I make a big mistake sizing wise. I go way too big and I make it 2,500. The big blind folds, saying that they would have called a smaller bet of 1,500, which is a much more appropriate sizing in this spot, so I'm frustrated with myself. In the next hand, I look down at deuce 3 offsuit in the big blind. The cutoff limps. The small blind completes. I'm happy to see a flop. I check. The flop comes 3, 3 jack with 2 clubs. I flop trips. The small blind checks to me. I make it 600. I much prefer this sizing here. However, the cutoff folds and the small blind folds. In the following hand, I look down at pocket queens from the hijack. Folds around to me. I make it 2,500. The button comes along. We go to the flop, which comes king, ace, 3 with 2 hearts. This is a board that hits my range, however, really sucks for my hand. So I guess we could go either way with a c-bet or a check. I decide to pot control here and try to get to the river as cheaply as possible. The turn is a 7 of hearts. I check again. The button bets 2,500. It's a small bet in relation to the pot, and as I mentioned before, I stick to the plan of getting to a river as cheaply as possible, so I call. River is the 10 of clubs. I check again, and I'm praying that the button checks back or bets small. If they bet big, I might have to consider a fold. They bet 2,500, another small bet, and again, going with the plan, I call. They show queen 10 for a rivered pair of 10s and a missed straight draw on the flop. They show us the international sign for well played, and we pick up the pot. Following hand, I look down at pocket fours in the big blind. The under the gun player opens to 2,000. The low jack calls to 2,000. With a pocket pair and pretty deep stacks, I want to try and set mine, so I come along and complete the 2,000. The flop comes 5-3-7. I check. Under the gun C bets for 3,200. The low jack folds. It's back to me. The under the gun player so far has been playing a pretty tight aggressive game, and I'm expecting them to bet here with all their big aces and their overpairs, of course. So I think my pocket fours still have a pretty good chance of being ahead right now. Plus, I have a gut shot straight draw to go along with my pair. So I call the 3,200. We go to the turn, which is the ace of diamonds. I check again. Under the gun bets again, but pretty small, 3,200. And I'm pretty upset that I didn't realize this at the time. It's only when editing that I realized that the ace actually gave me a double gut shot, because now a deuce would give me a straight as well. So a deuce, 4, or 6 most likely gives me the winning hand. If they're on the diamond draw, that obviously takes some of my outs away. But I have about 15 to 20% equity, and they're giving me 20% pot odds with this bet. So in retrospect, I think this was a slam dunk call. I did not think this through at the time, so I folded. On to the next hand. Here, I looked down at pocket 10s in the small blind. The low jack limps for 800, folds around to me. I make it 2,800, and the low jack comes along. We go to the flop, which comes 3-9-3. I C bet for 2,000. The low jack calls. We go to the turn, which is a queen of spades. With an overcard to my pair, I decide to pot control here and get to showdown as cheaply as possible, so I check. I was expecting the low jack to take a stab here and try to take the pot away. However, they check. River comes the 9 of clubs, which puts 2 pairs on the board. I check, and the low jack checks back, and they show ace deuce of heart. So clearly they weren't buying what we were selling on the flop, and they made a pretty loose float here. Happy to pick up the pot. On to the next hand. Next hand, I look down at queens again on the button. There's a limp from the under the gun player. The cutoff limps. I make it 3,500. The small blind calls. The under the gun player now shoves for 6,500 after limping. Interesting. The cutoff folds. And here I debated between flat calling, letting the small blind player in with possibly a weaker hand and maybe have them make a mistake on later streets, or isolating, raising, and just going heads up against the under the gun player. This time, I decided to flat the all-in, and the small blind comes along. The flop comes 9 king jack with 2 clubs. The small blind checks. I decide to check back here. It's a pretty dangerous board, and there's no side pot to fight for right now, so I pot control, try to get to showdown. The turn comes the 3 of clubs, and now the small blind bets 7,000. This is the same opponent from the pocket fours hand a couple of hands ago. Pretty tight aggressive player. I would be tempted to call here with my queens. However, in this specific configuration with a player already all in and no side pot, I have to give them credit for a strong hand here. So I reluctantly let my queens go.
Goodbye, my love.
They go to showdown, and it's pretty sick. The small blind player had ace king, so they flopped a king. And the under the gun player had queens, just like us. So pretty crazy. I'm actually happy that the small blind did not 3-bet pre-flop. Otherwise, I would have committed a lot more chips, possibly my entire stack. We started this tournament with 3 tables. We now move down to 2 tables. And in this first hand at this new table, I look down at King Jack of Hearts on the button. We see a limp from under the gun +1. I make it 3,200 and the under the gun +1 player calls. We go to the flop, which comes Jack Deuce 8 with 2 diamonds. Under the gun +1 checks. I down bet to 2,200 and the under the gun +1 player folds. So we pick up some chips and on to the next hand. Alright, so this one gets a little weird. I look down at Ace Jack under the gun. I open to 6,000, folds around to the small blind who defends and calls. We go to a flop of Queen Jack Jack. What a flop. So in previous hands where I flopped huge on, you know, relatively dynamic boards, I bet and got folds all around and did not really extract any value from my strong hands. In this spot, I feel like this is a pretty safe board to check and try to let my opponent catch up. So I check back. I hate my decision when the turns comes another queen and the small blind now leads for 15,000. I am so mad at myself for checking on the flop and putting myself in this very difficult spot now. The bet sizing is a little bit suspicious. They go for a full pot bet, slightly above pot. And I feel like this is a very polarizing bet. Like it's either nothing or it's a queen. That was my thought at the time. If stacks were deeper here, I would definitely consider calling and seeing what develops on the river. However, with stacks being what they are, I feel like I'm going to be faced with an all-in on the river, and my trip jacks almost feel like a bluff catcher at that point. I really debated this decision, but I decided on a fold and wait for a better spot to get all my chips in. Let me know in the comments what you think about this hand. I kind of beat myself up for a few minutes after that one. In this next one, we look down at Queen Jack offsuit from the low jack. I open to 5,000 here. The button comes along and the big blind defends. We go 3 ways to the flop, which comes Deuce 3-6 with 2 spades. The big blind checks to us. Here, once again, a terrible board for our range, a terrible board for our hand. However, I might be tilted a little bit from the hand before, so I decide that I want to fight for this pot. Apart from the spades, I don't feel like this is a board that's going to hit any of my opponents. So I decide to take a stab for 4,500. The button tanks and then they shove for 45,000. The big blind folds and, well, it's definitely a suspicious sizing. However, I only have queen high at that point, so I don't see the point in calling here. So I fold. So I lose a decent portion of my stack with these 2 hands, so I'm pretty mad at myself for spewing chips after working hard to build up a stack. And, well, it looks like the poker gods might show me some mercy as they bestow upon me pocket aces. Even better, there's an open from the hijack to 8,000. I have the perfect stack size here to just 3-bet shove. However, I thought that I had a better chance of doubling up by simply calling here and letting my opponent catch a piece of the flop and possibly double me up. It's a risky proposition, but with 6 big blinds left and still a few players to knock out before we get to the final table and even more players to knock out before we get to the money, my thought was, hey, if they catch up and they crack my aces, so be it, but I'm going to slow play them and try to double up. We go heads up to the flop, which comes 10-3 deuce rainbow. I decide to check to the razor here. However, they snap check back. This is not looking good. The turn is an ace. So we turn a set. I know this doesn't make a lot of sense because I have 2 aces in my hand and there's now a 3rd one on the board. But for some reason, I thought that this ace was going to induce a bet for my opponent if I check to them. And so that's what I do. I check. Obviously, it would be disastrous if our opponent checks back as this board is getting pretty wet. After thinking about it for a little bit, they bet 4,000. And here I'm continuing with my plan of just letting them blast away. By calling here, I'm leaving myself with a half pot bet on the river. So the plan at this point is to call and shove literally any river. The river comes to 5 of hearts, puts a 4-liner to the straight. The backdoor flush gets there. However, I stick with my plan, and so I shove my remaining stack, and I don't get snap called, which is great news. And now the hijack starts cutting off a call, counting the remainder of their chips, and now I'm just praying for a call. And after a long tank, they finally push the chips towards us. We show them the bad news. They had ace jack, so they did have the case ace, which is pretty sick for them. And we get the full double up. So nice that things went to plan. We now move to the final table. I don't get any hands for a couple of orbits, and I find myself with a stack of around 6.5 big blinds when I look down at ace 10 offsuit, and we see an open from under the gun to 10,000. Folds around to me. I shove. It's not the most comfortable shove against an under the gun open, and with my stack size, I know that they're very rarely going to fold. So really the best case scenario I can hope at this point is to be in a flip. I'm a little bit worried when I see the big blind start tanking, because I definitely don't want to go 3 ways here. However, after thinking for a bit, they fold. And now the under the gun player tanks, and they think about it for a while. So much so that I'm thinking that they might actually fold, which would be an amazing result. However, after thinking about it for a little bit longer, they finally call with pocket eights. Let's go to a showdown. The flop comes 3, king, 3. Come on, let's see an ace or a 10. Turn is a 7 of hearts. Ace or 10 on the river. One time, dealer. It's a 7. Pocket eights hold up. Another final table where we bust a couple of spots away from the money. Good game, everybody. See ya next time. GG. So there you have it. Once again, we bust short of the money. This was our 6th tournament at Deuce's Poker, and we are 6 for 6 for final tables. So that's good, but only 1 cash. So hopefully we curb this trend, and what better time to do so than tomorrow at the game, where I'll be playing this 10K guaranteed. So there's going to be quite a bit of money up top. So hopefully we can make a deep run and make a good vlog out of it, and we can celebrate a big score. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to check out my videos. Really appreciate it. Did you like this video? If yes, give me a thumbs up. And do you want to know when my next video comes out? Then please subscribe, hit the notification bell. Once again, I really appreciate your support. Help me grow the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.